You know what I love?
What?
Mini plastic babies. Boom.
Huh?
Mini plastic babies. You've never heard of them before? Look.
Okay. Yeah.
Hi, my name is Samuel Fisher, and welcome to Students Groups.
Well, my name's Marissa Tuminello. I'm not particularly fond of mini babies.
How could you not love mini babies? Here, let me show you my mini baby adventures.
Your what?
My mini baby adventures. Look. There. Yeah. Anyway, do you want one?
I think I'll pass.
Are you sure? Well, I mean, you can have one as long as you don't, hate it.
You know what? I think I'll pass.
They didn't want you anyway.
Well, let's try to get back on track here. Maybe we should bring Olivia out?
Oh, yeah, of course. Our speaker for today, ladies and gentlemen, is Olivia Merchant, our Mountain Road student pastor.
Hey, guys.
How you doing?
What's with the
Do
mini
you
babies?
want a plastic child?
Okay, thanks. Appreciate it.
Well, how about we take our mind off the mini babies and have a little bit of friendly competition?
Ooh, good idea. What were you thinking?
Pictionary, but with a twist, an emoji twist. So you know when Siri reads a text out loud, it also describes the emoji?
Yeah.
Oh, I think I get it. So Siri will describe an emoji, and we each have 10 seconds to most accurately draw the emoji from memory. The drawing closest to the real emoji wins, right?
Yep, it's a good thing I speak fluent in emojis.
It's so on.
Where did these come from?
It's fine.
Okay guys, so let's go ahead and play.
Okay.
So here's our first emoji.
Eye, mouth, eye.
All right, so I believe we begin right now. So let's reveal the emoji.
Yeah.
I was a little rough on this one.
I just
I was a
realized-
little too old for this, I think.
Oh.
I've seen it on TikTok before, though.
Does anyone get a point or anything?
Well, considering yours is the closest, I'd give you the point.
Definitely. Mine just looks like a monster that would be under your bed.
All right, here's our next emoji.
Grinning face with cowboy hat.
I'm looking like Bob the Builder.
Sorry.
I beg your pardon.
I can't even fix it.
I beg your pardon. Well, here's the emoji.
Gosh, okay, what's the next one?
Face with wide open eyes and flushed cheeks.
I didn't even know what I was going for.
Oh, yours looks
Yours is the best, I
What's that
think.
Pizza Hut one?
Whoa.
Oh, that's the one.
pizza.
Look at mine.
Cut him some slack.
The face is lopsided on mine.
Well, do you see mine? That's better than mine.
That's a ghost. That's not a blushing face. That's a
I
ghost.
know the names of the emojis, okay?
Okay.
Them all.
Sparkles.
Oh, what's
Snorkels. Oh, sparkles.
It's really small, but I tried to capture the essence.
Marissa's definitely got it. What you got over there? Oh, Samuel.
I tried to make yellow, okay? I don't know how that works.
Yellow is a primary color. You don't make it. Okay, what's our next one?
Backhand index finger pointing right. Backhand index finger pointing left.
I don't know what happened. I'm sorry.
That looks like.
Oh, Samuel.
Why does that?
You
one
had
of
a
them
different problem than what I had.
Why does one of them look like Oklahoma? Wait, that looks like Oklahoma. That was fun. Thanks for playing with us, Olivia.
Yeah, sure thing. Oh my gosh.
Go ahead, go on over and get ready for your message. We cannot wait to hear it.
Yep.
Okay, see you guys.
Bye.
Hey y'all, I can't tell you how many times I've been asked, what's your guilty pleasure? Whether it's food or movies or even thinking about that Disney Channel show that I was still watching when I was way outside the target audience. It was Bubble Guppies, in case you were wondering. What would you do if you knew you could get away with anything? If you knew there would be no punishment, no consequences, and no regret? Play video games all night long? Spend all your parents' money on your very own sneaker collection? Eat dessert for every meal? Take one of everything from your favorite store? Or would you hack into your teacher's computer and give yourself all A's? I'm sure we could all make a pretty long list of the things we do if we were 100% sure we wouldn't experience any consequences from them later. Because as I'm sure you know, there's nothing worse than having to face the consequences of something that you did wrong. I remember a time in middle school when my younger brother and I totally broke his bed by jumping on it while our parents were out. They had no idea the bed was broken until I was in college, and they could only assume the bed was broken from years of use. I would say I made it out of that one unscathed. The truth is, we all have the potential to think some wild thoughts. We're just smart enough not to talk about it. We're all experts at monitoring our behavior so that only the good stuff is seen for the most part. And like we talked about last week, it's important that we learn how to monitor our emotions because our emotions have a big impact on the way that we treat ourselves and other people. And that's a big deal to Jesus. Think of it this way. Tipping over this glass jar doesn't determine what's going to come out. What's already in here determines what's coming out. If there's Skittles inside, then Skittles are what's coming out. Shaking it doesn't determine what's coming out of it. It just exposes what's already in here. Some pretty cool candy. The same is true of our emotions. They're inside of us, which is why I think what King Solomon said is so important. In Proverbs, he said this, "Above all else, guard your heart, for everything you do flows from it." What Solomon was saying is what is going on inside of you is important. Why? Because what comes out of you is from your heart. We can all try to watch our actions and monitor our behavior, but that's not the real problem. The real problem is taking care of what's on the inside, because good or bad, whatever is inside is coming out, just like this jar of Skittles. And to be honest, if we're honest with ourselves, we can all admit that we have some problems on the inside, right? Most of us can quickly think of the things we've done or said or thought that no one else is allowed to know about, because we all have stuff inside of us that's not great. And when that stuff comes out of us and we do or say something that's not great, the result is usually a different emotion that can end up controlling us. I'm talking about guilt. In my experience, I've learned there are two kinds of guilt. First, there's false guilt. It's when we feel guilty about something we haven't actually done, so we put this false guilt on ourselves. We're hard on ourselves, so when we get a lower grade on a test than we wanted to, or we forget to do our chores, or we accidentally hurt a friend's feelings, or we unintentionally leave out a kid in our students group, we get overwhelmed with guilt, and we carry that guilt around with us. We feel like we've made a huge mistake, and we beat ourselves up about it because we feel guilty. In reality, we don't have to. We didn't do those things on purpose. We didn't bring those things on ourselves. But false guilt tells us otherwise. The second kind of guilt is real guilt. We feel guilty because we are guilty. We know we told that lie, or cheated on that test, or we started that rumor, or we hurt that friend on purpose. We know the thing we did or said was wrong. We know we hurt somebody, and because of that, we feel guilty. But the problem is, we're not really sure what to do with that guilt. Some of us try to ignore it. We deny it. We act as if we did nothing wrong or have nothing to be guilty about. We do our best to pretend the guilt just isn't there. But what I've learned from experience is that ignoring guilt only makes it more powerful, and it gives it more time and space to grow into something bigger. Something that has more power to motivate us to make more bad decisions or choices, or to tell more lies to cover up the guilt we're trying to avoid in the first place. And eventually, the weight just becomes way too much for us to carry. And the truth is, the more we try to run from guilt, the more it has the potential to control us. The more it has the power to take over and be the boss of us. Others of us struggle with guilt because honestly, we don't think we feel it. We do something that we know is wrong and something we shouldn't do, and well, that's it. End of story. Maybe we get caught, get punished, experience a consequence. Or maybe we don't. Either way, we don't really feel guilty about what we've done. We don't carry that backpack full of guilt around with us. Some of us maybe even wonder if we should feel bad about not feeling bad at all. I mean, shouldn't we feel a little guilt at some point? Sometimes we even let guilt turn into anger. We get mad at ourselves for what we did. We get mad that we got caught. We get mad that we don't feel guilty enough. We get mad that we can't just do whatever we want without consequences. And eventually, that anger leads to making more choices that lead to more guilt. The cycle just goes on and on. Here's what I want you to see about guilt. Just like any emotion, the feeling itself isn't bad. When we experience guilt, it's a sign to us that something is off. Something needs to change. Something needs to get right within us. That's a good thing, in my opinion. If we didn't experience guilt, we wouldn't be able to recognize when we needed to take a step to change or make something right. It's not the guilt itself that I want you to run from. It's letting it control you, push you, boss you around into believing something that just isn't true about you. It's when the guilt becomes so great that it weighs you down and controls how you feel and how you act. Here's the good news. You don't have to be defined by your past, and you don't have to deny it either. Jesus offers a different way, a way to no longer be controlled by your guilt, shame, or anger, and that's what we're going to talk about for the next few minutes. I want to look at something the Apostle Paul said. He wasn't just a preacher trying to make a point. He lived it. Paul had every reason to feel guilty about his past, because in the early part of his life, before he became known as the Apostle Paul, he was known as Saul of Tarsus. And Saul spent his time hunting down followers of Jesus so that he could arrest them and have them tortured, imprisoned, or even killed. He did more than just let this happen. He made it happen. But then Paul's life changed and he became a follower of Jesus. Instead of killing Jesus' followers, he made it his life's mission to encourage more people to follow Jesus. But his past was still his past. The actions Paul participated in should have left him with a guilt beyond comparison. But what makes his story so amazing is that he doesn't distance himself from his past. He doesn't run away from it, try to hide it, or deny it. He doesn't make excuses like, well, that was before I met Jesus, so it doesn't really count. Instead, as Paul is writing to Christians in Rome, he is trying to explain that our sin does not have to condemn us. He puts it like this: therefore, there is now no condemnation for those who are in Christ Jesus, because the Spirit who gives life has set you free from the power of sin and death. In other words, he tells people that because of Jesus, something new happened. You don't have to pretend that you didn't do something wrong. There's freedom in owning up to God what you said or did. When you call it what it is, that weight comes off of you. You can stop running and making excuses. You can let all of that go and find freedom. How? Paul tells us, for what the law was powerless to do because it was weakened by the flesh. Meaning all the old law could do was show us what we got wrong. It points out the ways we messed up, but it can't fix anything for us. It can't take that weight away, and it definitely doesn't give us freedom. But Paul goes on, for what the law was powerless to do because it was weakened by the flesh, God did by sending his own Son in the likeness of sinful flesh to be a sin offering. Meaning because Jesus came down to us, he set the example. He did nothing wrong. He came and lived a perfect life, and he died a criminal's death so that we can be free. He put our guilt on himself when he died on the cross. We have every reason to feel guilty. Jesus had none, and yet Jesus is the one who died. And because of that, we no longer have to feel guilty. Think of it this way. Because of Jesus, guilt doesn't have to be the boss of you. Jesus took all of it. It's like he's saying, Bring all of your guilt over all the stuff you've ever done. Own it. What you did was wrong. It wasn't okay. We both agree that you messed up and are guilty. But that is not the end of the story. I don't see you that way anymore. And I don't want you to see yourself that way either. I want you to see yourself the way I do. Paul wraps up the thought by saying, "And so he condemned sin in the flesh, in order that the righteous requirement of the law might be fully met in us, who do not live according to the flesh, but according to the Spirit." Paul is saying, God has made the relationship between you and him guilt-free. You're guilty because you did something you shouldn't have. We all have. But you're not condemned, and that guilt doesn't define you anymore. What Jesus did on the cross defines you. Jesus took the guilt on himself, and now you're free. So because we find freedom from guilt when we follow Jesus, here's what I want you to know. You can stop being so hard on yourself. Maybe you're someone who struggles with a lot of false guilt. Or maybe you're someone who is dealing with very real guilt for some very real mistakes right now. No matter where you fall, the truth is there's grace, and that means that Jesus isn't hard on you, so you can stop being hard on yourself. You can stop beating yourself up for what you've done or what you feel. You can stop believing the lies that guilt or even other people tell you about who you are because of what you've done. Instead, you can embrace the grace that Jesus gives you to live guilt-free. You can stop being so hard on others. This one I know we all do sometimes, because it's easy to look around and think about all the reasons we know other people should feel guilty for what they've said or done. It's easy to let that define who they are in our minds. But when we accept Jesus' grace for ourselves, we can and should also extend it to others. It doesn't mean that what they did or said wasn't wrong or hurtful, but it does mean that we can offer them forgiveness and a chance to start over, just like Jesus offers us. Even if they don't ask for it, we can still extend grace and forgiveness. You can let guilt remind you, but not define you. Remember how we said that guilt doesn't have to be a bad thing on its own? It can be a sign to us that something isn't right, that something needs to change. And because of Jesus, that's where it stops. Guilt can remind us of the path that we've walked before. It can help us not go down that road or make those same mistakes again. But it doesn't get that final say in who we are. It doesn't get to define us. You're free to make things right with the person you hurt without excuses or an expectation of getting something back from them. This is big. Sometimes we think that when we do something wrong, the most important thing for us to do is just pray, ask God for forgiveness, and everything is fine. But it's not always fine. Jesus cares about making it right, not with him, but the person you hurt. So go ahead and pray for forgiveness, but then go out and make it right with the other person. Whatever you took from them, trust, friendship, self-esteem, own it. And here's the thing, it's possible that your willingness to be humble and approach that person will do more than just keep the guilt from controlling you. It will allow them to deal with the hurt and emotion inside of them that they may not have even known they had. In fact, what if it's the reason that you're here today? What if someone is waiting on you to make the first move and make things right? What if that's the way forward and the way out of the weight of guilt? Don't let pride, fear, or worry be the thing that keeps you from righting a relationship. Maybe the best thing you can do is let that guilty emotion go. Humble yourself and seek forgiveness from the person you hurt. I get that it's scary, but remember, as long as we hold on to guilt, we are letting our past define us. And Jesus came to change that. Our past can remind us, but it will not define us. Maybe today is the day that changes. Maybe today is the day you really understand that because of what Jesus did for you, you're no longer condemned. Guilt is not in control. That emotion is not going to call the shots. There's no room for that emotion of guilt, shame, embarrassment, and pride. Because of Jesus, all of that is gone. As we head out, let's remember that and pass that same love on to others, despite their mistakes. Because of Jesus, guilt doesn't have to be the boss of you, and it doesn't have to be the boss of the people around you either.
So there isn't a time that I remember where I didn't know Jesus, because my parents, they went to Mountain before they had kids, and then once they had kids, We were always at Mountain every Sunday. I like did not want to go to church. I was like, I don't want to go to Mount Kidmore. It's so boring. Like, this is so boring. I'm not learning anything new. I've heard every story of the Bible. And so I was just like, I'm not going to church. My parents were like, yeah, you are. Get in the car. The first time I ever viewed pornography was in the 4th grade. And I was like curious about like sex and like what that was. So I would like looked up porn and was like, oh. And then slowly, as porn does, I got addicted. Watching it every day all the way through middle school, through high school, and something I still struggle with now. And I realized that it was a problem when I heard like my first sermon talking about sex and pornography. And I remember Pastor Ben being like, yeah, pornography is like super bad. And I was like, oh no, is what I'm doing bad? I felt so guilty because I was like, oh, I've been having this habit for years now, and I just learned that this is bad, and I felt so guilty because I was like, I'm not following God's plan for my life, and I don't know how to fix it, and I just feel so guilty because like I felt like God was mad at me, and that made me feel so bad. I didn't know how to help myself, and in that moment I was like, well, obviously God hates me because I do this sinful thing. And I was like, well, if God hates me, what else do I have left? There's nothing else for me. Like, I can't grow, I can't do anything. I was just like stuck. In the time where I felt like the most guilty about my porn addiction, and I felt like I couldn't save myself, or like God was mad at me and would never forgive me, I let my guilt control me, and I let my guilt stop me from moving on and progressing and growing. The moment that like kind of took me out of that like stuck period was in my small group. Like, I was hearing other guys talk about their relationship with porn, and I felt, oh, I'm not alone. And then my leaders telling me that like God doesn't hate you, God still loves you, and you can still, this isn't the end of the road. And I heard God be like, yeah, I don't hate you, I love you very much, and you can grow and you can still have a relationship with me even though you struggle with this. And that really opened up my eyes and just made me dive deeper into my faith. Whenever I would slip up, definitely those thoughts of guilt would come back, and I would just return to that state of feeling so bad about myself. Just reminding myself that God loves me, and just remembering like what my leaders and my peers have told me, and going into the Word and just reminding myself that God loves me, and just reminding myself what God has said to me. That was the biggest thing that took me out of it and has put me on a better path. Ever since that point where I wanted to take my faith seriously and like really get my porn addiction under control, I've seen a big change in my mindset mostly. Whenever I'm feeling guilty, instead of just letting that control me and just take over, I've learned to like go to God, and it's not too late to go to God. Even if I didn't do it in the moment where I was feeling tempted, I can still go afterwards, and I don't have to let this guilt control me. I can go to God, and He can take some of that off my chest. I would definitely say to people who also struggle with pretty much anything, it's okay to feel bad. It's okay to feel guilty. But you don't have to let it control you. You have control over how it affects you, and it's not too late to make a change. It's not too late to change your mindset, and you can always get help, and you can always help yourself, and it's not too late.
Hey, I'm missing a couple of plastic babies. Have you seen them?
Oh, no, I haven't. There's some on the floor right here, but I'm not sure if you need a singular one.
I'll pick them up.